Anybody wants that?
This south side,
Okay, everybody.
left side of the road.
It's a little bit after 4, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the meeting of the Morrow County Clean Water Consortium all up to order. And our first item is an executive session. Could you put on the screen who all is doing?
Kristen Osterman, Griffin Beach.
Okay, so we will go into for ORS 192-66202D, which allows the board to meet in executive session to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. Okay, so we are now back in open session and we're on business item number 3, which is the interview for managing director. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around the room and introduce ourselves. So we'll all know. We don't say we all, we all know each other. So, okay, my name is Dave Sykes. I'm the Morrow County Commissioner and the chair of the committee.
I'm Valerie Ballard. I'm the executive assistant to the board of commissioners and just supporting staff for the consortium.
Matt Jensen, acting managing director for Clean Water Consortium in Morrow County's county administrator.
Lisa Middlestorf, executive director of the Port of Morrow and member of the consortium.
I'm Tamara Meda, the county planning director and member of the consortium.
Kelly Doherty, commissioner of the Port of Morrow. My name's Isabel Gonzalez and I'm on the advisory committee.
And for the record,
Oh, Jared Tesh, well, Engaged Elevate is my company, but, here for the interview.
well, do you want to explain to them how we're gonna do this?
So Jared, as the board is interested in interviewing you, we will be asking 9 questions. And we have 9 set questions that we'll be asking. But at first we will give you 10 to 15 minutes to present on the 4 points that I emailed out to you. Those will be part of the scoring conditions. So we'll ask you to address each of those points if possible. And then after you're done, we'll go into the questions and we'll just go around the room. We plan for about an hour. And so we'll ask those questions, and if there might be any follow-up questions or anything specific to your proposal, the board may ask of those. So we'll go in that order. And so with that, please introduce ourselves and tell us about Elevate to Engage.
All right. Well, good evening. I am Jared, lifelong public servant, over 25 years of experience working and serving in the public sector, much of that in education, and especially the last decade specifically, I've been a school administrator, a principal, and assistant principal. My background is rooted in leadership and advocacy within local government and educational agencies. I was born and raised in Umatilla. So I'm deeply familiar with this specific region. In fact, cut my teeth, well, one of my first jobs was anything along the properties on Highway 730 and into Irrigan, just whether it was mending fences or working with livestock or baling hay and all those small, and a lot of them have been subdivided now, but at the time, that's what we're doing. I had sheep, small orchards. So a lot of my money when I was a teenager was just picking up the odd jobs along that route. In addition, I've also, when I graduated from high school, I went to school at University of Oregon, where I studied political science and history and business. And then going through my early life crisis, ended up in law school. Why, I don't know, but someone says that I was pointed in the right direction and took a lead from that, and then started working for the city of Eugene, first in their public works office, doing some, again, administrative tasks really, and then landed in recreation, actually, city of Eugene Parks and Recreation. So again, some public service, and that's where I then got my foot into education. And so I was primarily there. However, I've also spent time overseas, studied abroad in Mexico. I served a mission in the Philippines. I have traveled throughout the country. And I taught social studies, American history more specifically, and have been a big advocate for public engagement and civic engagement. It's something that was kind of something I stood by and helped my students understand. And I really believe that a lot of the problems in our country stem from really poor social studies education over the years. So maybe it's a personal thing that I've taken on myself to like, what can we do better about that? But in any case, I think these experiences, I share that because I think these valuable experiences help me empathize and work with more people. Most recently, I was a high school principal where I managed about 50 staff and the systems for hundreds of students. It was about 500 students. I established this company or LLC to provide specialized managerial planning and facilitation services for public entities and use my acquired skills and perspectives to help more people. I really believe like that's what I want to do. Why I've chosen public sector is because I think it's meaningful work. And I believe my local advantage is I live and work here. And by here, I mean Umatilla. I know it's not Morrow County, but that allows me kind of one step removed without having to be, so it's personal. I'm still part of, you know, the lower Umatilla Water Great Basin, but I'm not in the county. So perhaps there's an opportunity for me to be neutral in certain aspects of this and still be meaningful and personal. It also provides me or you immediate access to me. I'm not in Portland, Boise, Seattle, even Tri-Cities. I am, you know, literally 20-minute drive away and can be here every day if I need to be for whatever that needs to be, and even on short notice. I believe in what I do, meaning engaging the public. That was even my calling card as an administrator. I had a knack for connecting with people. You can ask the parents and kids and other stakeholders of any district I have served over the years, and they would say that was one of my strengths, was the relationships that I would build and the connections that I could make with them to help make sense of so often complicated or things that the laws or bureaucracy or whatever it is, and help them navigate that and or understand it and get to the other side of it. You know, the second question besides my introduction, I will say that in planning and coordinating capital projects, my primary background, of course, is in organizational leadership, but I have extensive experience managing fiscal and logistical foundations that make these projects possible. So I'm not an engineer, obviously. I'm not in construction outside of remodeling every home I've lived in. My wife and I joke we've been married almost 23 years, and I think 20 of that our house has been in some form of remodel. But again, that my roles as an administrator in particular, though, I did oversee resource management and budgets exceeding $3-4 million, not including salaries, not including benefits and salaries. So that's just in the cost of things and stuff and projects. I've also have a proven track record of established long-term operational systems that improve workflow and ensure accountability. So breaking down larger projects and making those little things happen so that we can get to the big goal. I am prepared to coordinate the consortium activities within established policies, including supervision of consultants and contractors. That's something that I have done as I worked with them in the public education sector as well. You know, additionally, my work even currently with the city of Umatilla involves aligning community needs with regulatory requirements and funding criteria. I'm honest that I'm not a water utility engineer. I am a quick learner. with a demonstrated ability to manage large, complex organizations. My role is to provide professional management needed to oversee the existing experts. I do know Nick Ducote, for example, who already does a lot of the grant work, and GSI Water Solutions, who you've already contracted. They are the experts, and I don't pretend to be the expert in things like that, but I do believe my job is to partly get the people who this is what they do for a living and what they enjoy doing and are passionate about, and getting the most from them, and then making sure that they do what they say they're going to do. That is always, you don't teach 500 kids by yourself. I help others be the best at what they be and put them in positions to be the best at what they be, so that 500 kids have happy, successful experiences. That's what I learned to do over the years. Or in the case of middle schoolers, I was at 2 middle schools with over 800 kids. So you can imagine 800, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and still making sure that they have wonderful experiences. Again, that wasn't me doing that. It was helping the other experts in the building do what they do best, and trusting them to do that work and then helping them get there. In terms of public outreach and stakeholder engagement, I would say that is one of my calling cards. My references would always speak to that, and it's something I truly enjoy doing. I know that obviously this is a big topic. It's national news. It's in many ways it's a good thing. Without the national spotlight, you don't get a lot of these extra resources that allows us to be able to find solutions. This is not a new problem. It's been around a while, but with the spotlight, as negative and painful as it might be, the benefit is you have some resources. So with that, however, because of that, people, there's always a public trust that has to be reestablished, and that can only happen with relationships. Everything we do is relationships based. So I think that's what this is about. This is not about engineering and project completion, though that is an important part of fulfilling trust and making trust happen. The important part is first establishing the trust and communicating and getting to know and hearing people out, and know that they need to know that I care and that I'm willing to work my tail off to help them make resolution, and to see through these goals and or overcome some of these things. So that's what my career has been defined by, is building relationships, and the ability to translate technical, bureaucratic government language into clear, actionable vision and understanding for people. I've successfully done this at multiple schools and buildings with, all stakeholders, whether they're residents, elected officials, consultants, legal teams, again, anyone and everyone involved, boards, making sure voices are heard, and still maintaining project momentum. I currently even specialize, that's one project I'm on with the city of Umatilla, Rock the Locks. They have some things with their community related to that, and that's what I do with them is to engage the public and help make meaning and develop those relationships. And even in the short time of doing that, I think we've seen some fruitful results. I'm adept at bringing very diverse groups together to create collective vision and to get their input, and find common ground. And above all this, what I'm known for too is to be the calm in the storm. I don't get too high, I don't get too low. And even when people are screaming at me, I've learned, my state dictates their states. And as when I choose not to get agitated, and to help just make meaning, that goes a long way. And these are things people are passionate about, and that's okay, right? Like, that's why we do what we do, is because we care and we want to improve the lives of others. And so, yeah, when we're talking about drinking water, like, that's a fundamental basic need. I've lived in places where, Philippines, we had to bucket our water out of wells and treat that water. And I've seen and experienced that all the way to being very understanding how fortunate we have in the most part in the United States, water that we can drink and use in vast quantities. And so I can empathize with the challenge of this. And it is hard. But that's what I hope to be able to be too, is the calm and the reassurance and not engage in the fight that isn't going to help us move a direction. I'll engage in a fight that helps us move the direction that we all want to get, but not make it personal. And that's what again, people would say about me as well. Last, interest and understanding of the consortium goals. Like you, I'm deeply interested in this role, as I mentioned, because we need to improve the life of the people who are affected by this, the unincorporated people of Morrow County. And I hope to be kind of that connective tissue, if you will, between the residents, the board, and in meeting the consortium's goals. And again, I recognize that this consortium is really a partnership between the port and the county, who have created this to make stuff happen. We've known about this for a while and it's been a problem, and now we need to do something about it. And that is the ultimate goal, without having to be hindered in also running the port and or running the county. And this can be its primary focus and goal. So again, I think the first goal is to simply move forward with some of the existing projects and the research and the work already have been done by H2, the water roadmap project, right? And some of the stuff they've already I don't know if decided is the right word, but they have determined what is most feasible, where we start. And with their smaller, we can't fix every single spot all at the same time, including Hermiston and Umatilla on top of what's in Morrow County. We need to start somewhere though, and by identifying the West Glen neighborhood area and working with that and finding the cheapest, but not just cheap, but like the most practical solution, and then moving forward with that. So I think that is a key part, is in the consortium goal should be, we need to accomplish something, not just continue to talk about the things that are happening and because it's been talked about a long time. So just again, continue. We are on that path already, or you are on that path already. It's continuing that progress, and reminding people that that's the first step, and we are actually on step 3 or 4, and reminding that, and because our memories are often pretty short about that. So again, continue to move forward with the construction and the plans, with a lot of the work that's already been done. Continue to identify funding and resources. That is something in the world of education, it's something we have to do all the time as well. And it is specifically something that I've been doing with the city of Umatilla, identifying, in fact, that we've already identified with my help, several $1 million in both grants and appropriations, and or other creative means to find some funding to support various different projects. In this case, we can focus specifically on water. And again, this is one of those things where the publicity, as negative as it might feel, is actually a good thing. You have senators who care because their constituents call them. So when they hear it loud and clear, they're more likely to find a way to support funding options, even if it's an allocation here or there, which will, again, those allocations are a way to get bigger money. Not that grants aren't great too, but if we can continue to move forward with that to find more resources, continue or improve the outreach and communication. Like I said, relationship is key. And I think being transparent and almost over communicating is part of that. Something I did, in every place I was an administrator, in the age of social media and the lack of local traditional media, what I have learned is you have to get ahead of the messaging. You have to be in front. Any void of information is filled by other information that you don't control. And so it's getting ahead of the message is something you got to do. And there's no one way you do that. There's lots of ways you do that. But I think that that's important. Just continue to remind people that the work is still going forward. This is what we're doing. This is what we have done. This is a positive thing. As much positive messaging, because there'll be plenty of negative messaging and commentary that other people will fill in. But again, as you do that, it will not silence the criticism, of course, but it allows people who are on the fence or who aren't, don't care or don't know or aren't as passionate. They will begin to question the negative when they see that there's these positive things happening, when they can find just as much positive, if not more, than someone's negative opinion over and over again. And then again, I have the administrative capacity to fulfill these goals. This is what I've been doing, even on a high level, for a long time now. And so again, I think even though I'm local, I've got these experiences that are maybe unique or suited well to this situation, and can help you meet the consortium goals. Yeah, that's, I hope I covered the 4 areas. That was what I was thinking about. So,
Well, thank you. With that, we'll go into our questions that we have. We'll be kind of asking groups of questions, starting with Chair Sykes and then moving around to the other 3 board members. So, Chair?
Okay, mine are kind of all connected. You touched on quite a bit on my first question, which was, I'll assume you read our IGA, our mission statement.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Assume.
And then I spent several hours going through every meeting minutes, notes, and
Yeah.
it's fun to see all you in person because I've been watching you in video for a while. So.
Yeah. And so, I'm not asking you to repeat our mission statement by verbatim, but how would you sum up real quickly what our goals are? I know you touched on this already.
Promote access to safe drinking water throughout unincorporated areas in Morrow County by funding, developing, and building projects to provide drinking water to residents affected by nitrate contamination. I mean, that's that's the purpose, and I pulled from the IGA the specific responsibility.
No, you nailed it. Okay. And my second question is a follow-up. Do you feel you can stay on track with our mission statement and not be tempted to stray away and start, addressing or dealing with other issues other than what we've defined our mission, this group is? Do you think you could do that, stay on track?
Yes, and the reason I said is because that's what you're hiring me to do. You're not hiring me to also, fix roads. And
Well, I'm not talking about roads. I'm talking about there's more to the water issue than just putting pipe in the ground is what's kind of one of our.
Yes.
You probably saw that. And, that's our mission statement, but people like to talk about other water issues in the Wagwama, and we've worked pretty hard to try and keep it narrow, In fact, our engineer even said that it's fairly narrowly written. And you feel you would be able to do that?
Yeah, and partly, and I mentioned this in my proposal too, is I'm not a water engineer who sits on the Guama or H2O, and though I've done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people about it and, read the newspaper, read the articles online. I think that one advantage you have in hiring me is I will do exactly as directed by you. Now I have skill sets and I think I have a good idea, but the goal is to get the project done, to get, like you said, lines in the ground and get people some clean water, and start to make progress in actual, have people have clean water. That's what we want. And that's the goal. Now, we'll have to do some other things to help people get to that point. And that's part of what we'll do. But the goal is to get people some clean water.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess my final question, kind of still a follow-up. We only meet, what are we mandated to meet every 3 months or one
Every
week?
2 months.
Every 2 months, okay. So this will be a fair amount of, work, personal, motivation. So, okay, could you tell us what your work attributes, what your work and personal attributes that would keep you on track, fulfilling our mission statement, going back to the same thing and not getting off on, uh, broader nitrate issues or, politics and Salem on this, what do you feel your work and personal attributes are to keep you focused on your own, because you don't have day-to-day, motive or, oversight by the.
Well, that's just, I think you're hiring me to make sure that the day-to-day gets done, right? Like, if any of you have family or know educators and or administrators, you know that we don't even understand what a 40-hour work week is. I mean, it's funny because I joke with my wife, I don't think I've ever worked less than 50 to 60 hours a week in terms of I'm always busy. I need to be doing something, and there's always more that needs to be done. And so I think one of my attributes is I'm well organized. I keep things prioritized. I keep a working list of the things that need to be done, and that's literally how I start and end my day. Like, okay, I got to put this down. So let me spend the last few minutes. Let's see what we got done on the list, what we need to move up the list. And so I think that that's part of who I am and what I've done for a long time. I mean, even when I was teaching, I was also coaching high school basketball, and I had young children at home and responsibilities in church and other things. So I don't know anything other than busy. And so in terms of that, and then me reporting back to you, I mean, again, like I said, I would believe that you're hiring me to do this work because you guys have other responsibilities. And so I will be motivated because that's what I do.
Okay.
If that makes sense,
No, it makes very sense,
Yeah.
good sense. To me, that's a very good answer.
And I will say this too. I believe in over the years, I've been offered many jobs in the private sector that I could be making a lot more money, and always could have, but that for some reason, whoever I am as a human being, I believe in doing public service. Like I get greater fulfillment. That is more important to me. I got to have paychecks to feed my family and pay the bills, and we're realistic on that. But for me, it's not about money. It's about making people's lives better. And I believe in public service. So there's a personal motivation to this too. So
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. You've answered a lot of our questions, but we'll be more specific here. Give an example of when you had to manage an intense interaction with a member or group from the public on a diverse subject. What worked? What could you have done better?
Well, I don't know if this is the best. I coached high school basketball, and I could give you lots of examples in a school setting, but I'm gonna throw this one out there only because, well, I guess I could ask you, you want an education setting, or I can do a more recent rock the locks type of community setting. Would you prefer that one? So we have where the Rock the Locks event is happening in Umatilla, on the golf course. It hasn't been embraced by everybody, but the majority of the community actually are very supportive. But as you can imagine, anywhere where you ultimately decide to do something like this, there's going to be some people negatively affected. And so there's a handful of residents who live adjacent to the venue. And so for 3 days of the year, they have to deal with a rock concert in their backyard. And it's on a golf course. So you can imagine that the people who bought these properties, this was never their expectation. So obviously there's some strong feelings that exist among several of the residents. And so what I have done just this last year with them is they had some meetings initially that they all met together, and what they learned quickly was there was really a minority of people who were really angry. And then there was a majority who actually were supportive, but wanted to be supportive of their neighbor. And so we got a lot of groupthink that happened where decisions and conversations were dominated by one or two people. And so strategically, I said, well, I just need to meet with them individually. We just need to have those. He's like, well, we don't have time. I'm like, I have time. I can do that. Like, I will meet with them and meet them where they're at. And I can be the neutral person. Like I said, I'm not the city. I am a consultant, and so that's what we did. I met with nearly all the residents. I reached out to all of them. Some of them are like, look, I'm good. I don't need it. We don't need to talk. And others, I spent 5 hours in their living room on a Saturday morning, just hearing them out, taking detailed notes, following up with their concerns. If anything else, I think I won some of the people over just by listening. They felt heard for the first time because there wasn't a time clock. They were meeting at their home. I didn't say, let's meet someplace else. One of them insisted we meet at the bridge, and they fed me. I'm like, even better. But again, we were able to make some meaning and sense. And are they all still happy? No, but are they happier? I would say yes. Again, the jury's maybe still out, but what we have is people who are now feeling that at least they're being heard and that the city cares. And I was able to even represent the city and say, because when they would say, well, they just don't care. And I'm like, whoa, you realize that they're paying me to be here. Like that, they don't have to do that. Like legally, they can just have the party and sorry, but they do care. And I was able to show them and just make me, because I could say that though, because I had already invested 2.5 hours and I knew who their grandkid was, or in one case, their neighbor is the grandmother of my son's best friend, or, I had these personal connections with them in some way, or I could say, oh yeah, I've been in this house before. So-and-so used to live here type of thing. With those personal connections we were able to make. And then one step further, I proposed something to the city that hadn't been thought of I said, it's time the city just to acknowledge that there might be nothing we can do. So instead of finding a million other ways to mitigate the sound and the vibration, why don't we find alternative solutions and just call it that, some alternative mitigation that includes things like, you know what, we recognize that this is an inconvenience and this is bad for you for 3 days. So what can we do to make it better? Because we can't do the sound. And so that's what we're working through right now, plans and proposals around golf memberships. We're going to subsidize some in-kind benefits or VIP upgrades to their tickets. We're, a travel reimbursement. If they want to travel and just get out of town, we're going to reimburse some of that travel. These are things, and we were able to individualize it because we learned that this was not a one size fits all for this particular group. It was really 4 or 5 out of 12 homes that were not supportive and upset. And so the long answer is it was that relationship that I was able to make meaning and just keep my calm, even though they were really upset, and to empathize, and then find a solution that I think, again, jury's still out, and is everybody going to be happy? No. In fact, when everybody's happy, then there must be something wrong, or someone's just not saying anything. But we've moved forward, and I think we move forward. The city's able to move forward. The residents are able to move forward with something that they feel part of the solution with, and instead of just being steamrolled or forgotten or left out or any of the above. So.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Please describe your experience in managing public meeting requirements in Oregon.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about this, and I've attended school board meetings and city council meetings and other public meetings, even at the state level, for pretty much my whole life. Because I was, even as a teacher, I was engaged. I was in teacher leadership stuff almost from the beginning. I don't know how I got looped into being in a union representative stuff in my second year when I'm still probationary, but that's what happens, right? Okay. When you're willing, I guess, when you're not afraid to step up and to help. Um, it was funny. I was like, well, when was the very first time I ever had to do that? I was in Key Club in high school, and I know that's like crazy. You're like high school. In Key Club, we had to. I was a lieutenant governor, and so we'd meet for these regional meetings in Seattle and Portland, and we used Robert's orders and parliamentary procedure, as we called it then. So I guess I don't. I personally have not been a city manager or a mayor. I personally have not been the director. I would say that in most cases, you rely on people who are already very knowledgeable, and you look over and go, did we do that right? And you also are prepared as you go into the meeting. Obviously, there's in public meetings law, there's notification that has to happen. Again, I would say I've been doing this a long time, and I know how important all of those pieces are, because if you don't do them, you're breaking the law, and it can lead to lawsuits and ethics violations and all sorts of other things that nobody ever wants to get into, even though that's never your intention. So it's about being organized and planned and beforehand and having those things. And when you don't know, it's push pause and ask the people who do it all the time. Are we doing this right? Do we need to push pause and then move forward?
Thank you very much.
Hey, Jared.
Thanks.
Big breath, deep breath. So I have the next two questions. Grants, local, state, federal, and private will be a large component of the CWC budget. Describe your experience working with grants and ensuring grant compliance.
I was in education. That's outside of your state school fund, everything has strings attached to it. So understanding reporting and compliance, I don't. We're a public entity. That's just what happens. So I have vast experience in that, is what I'm saying. And in terms of finding them and researching them and writing them, like fortunately, Nick Ducote is he's on board with that, and he's really good at that already. So I don't know what to say other than I have vast experience. Some grants come with a lot bigger strings attached to them than others. I know that and understand that. And I know that a lot of grants too, depend, how well you perform the first time on it will depend if you continue to get that funding or not. I can even look back and say there was one grant we got many years ago. It was a collaboration grant related to schools and stuff, and it was pretty lucrative, and we were doing some amazing things. So the ironic thing is we were kind of the model, and they sent us around the state to showcase us. And so we thought we were definitely they're going to renew this for us. And then we were so disappointed when they did, and they said, well, because you've already done it, you're doing it, you don't need the continued money. We're like, well, we can't do it without the money. But it was a learning for me about there's part of it in, yes, you can do it, but you also need to show that you need to justify why you need to continue to have the resources to make it work. And it's not that we're not being sustainable or building capacity, because those are always your goals. But if you want us to continue to be a model, we need the resources to do so.
Thank you. Next question switches gears a little bit. How do you handle a situation when board members may not have consensus?
Well, I think having ground rules are very important from the start. A relationship of trust is important, knowing each other, and knowing that we all are here for the same reason. And that I think is a good starting point, but the ground rules are important. I think we call it pre-work, right? You have to do some of that. And even though it's annoying, people will say, why do we have these standards? Or, let's just get to the discussion. I'm like, no, it's important to establish that framework beforehand, because when things do go awry, and I appreciate when people are passionate about the topics that is what moves the needle. And when you are passionate and you have very strong feelings, that is okay. It's okay to acknowledge those. And so again, the ground rules are important, because those ground rules will help establish that when we are to a point where we're not moving forward, we need to say timeout, or we need to agree to disagree, or table it for the next, it kind of depends. And there's not a right solution all the time, because depends on what the deadline is. Sometimes you need to make a decision yesterday, and sometimes, you know what? In the big picture, that decision can actually be tabled for a couple of weeks. Let's step away. Let's, reconsider. And then one thing I've had that, I've done in the past is when that happens, we have the public meeting where maybe that conversation is happening and it's important in the public meeting, but then after, when we push pause, me individually, who is not a voting member, right? I am not the elected representative, has that conversation with that public person one-on-one. And let's make sure I truly understand, so I can help make meaning in the larger meeting later, and know that this is not about someone winning or not. The goal is we all win by moving forward with the goal of, in this case, putting pipe in the ground, and moving forward with the consortium, getting people clean water. So.
Great, thank you.
I have question number 8. What is your experience working with the state and federal representatives, both elected and staff?
State and federal, well, first of all, one thing I've learned over the years is I develop relationships with their staff. I learned that that's how things get done. When I was a kid, I thought it'd be really cool, I just need to talk to the senators, and I'd meet the senators, and okay, that was great for a nice picture. But I am, well, I know Andrew Keys, and he's Wyden's chief of staff for Eastern Oregon, and then Merkley Jessica Keys for Merkley. So again, I'm working with them already extensively. I've met them in other settings. Side note, I'm going to DC for a family trip. So I used to teach social studies. So here's my side note. Sorry if I'm running out of time. Tell me to shut up. But as an 8th grade social studies teacher, I took students for their East Coast trip. It was something that I started because, why not? That would be awesome. And very successful. And it was in Dallas, Oregon, where I was teaching at the time. But I did that for 10 years until I started getting into administration. And so as my kids got older, I told my own kids, I'm like, hey, I will support you to go with a school group, or your dad can take you, right? And so I took my 2 oldest ones a couple of years ago. And so my 2 younger ones now, one's a junior and one's an 8th grader. I'm taking them in March. So what I have done, I've already set up, just because I'm going to be there, I've already set up meetings with the infrastructure staff for Merkley and Wyden's office on Friday, March 20th, just to discuss some projects that I'm doing with the city of Umatilla. Because again, I know that the important thing is to develop the relationships with the staff and help them. Look, the reason they have a job and they exist is to get that information and to craft legislation or to find ways. Because in the end, I firmly believe the majority of our elected representatives, just like you, even at the national or state level, they want to make a difference. They want to help people. Now, they might have different beliefs about how to get there, but in the end, they want to help, and they can't help if they don't know. And I'm not saying the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And all I mean by that is if they don't know about your project, or if they don't know about the needs or the concerns, then they can't take action. One great thing about this project, again, the 2-edged sword, the negative publicity, is it's on the front of their minds. And so it's easy to go to them, both at the national level and of course the state level. Bobby is not my representative, but I've met with Bobby and her staff, Bobby Levy and Echo. And then of course, Greg Smith, I've met with him and his staff a couple of different times. Again, and that's just in really the last year since I've been consulting with the city of Umatilla. But only because, anywhere I've lived, and I'm a social studies history, political science major. Remember, like I don't shy away from that. I understand how that works. I'm not also intimidated by it. And I appreciate the work that these people are willing to do. I hope that answers your question. So,
All right, question number 9. Any residents served by the Clean Water Consortium are underrepresented minority groups? How have you successfully handled interacting in such situations?
well, so I was the principal at Umatilla High School, which is a majority school district. And I was in Central School District as well, same situation. In Pendleton, where I was, you have an interesting dynamic there where you serve the reservation, which is again a different dynamic. I have been the minority. In the Philippines for 2 years where I lived, and in Mexico, where I studied abroad. I come from poverty, pretty extreme poverty, and I don't know. I just the ability to empathize, the ability to appreciate everybody in their circumstances, wherever they're at, connect with them. I do speak some Spanish. I would say conversationally. When it starts to get technical or if they really need answers, then I'm going to find an interpreter. But I can hold up conversations just fine in Spanish specifically. Not saying that it's just Spanish speakers. But again, I grew up in Umatilla County and in this area, and I'm familiar with that need as well. I think the important thing is regardless of who they are, they still need to be heard and communicated with in a way that they are most comfortable with. And sometimes, again, they don't want you to meet at their homes for sometimes different reasons. And so. But they also can't meet at times traditionally where other people can meet. And you just have to plan and be prepared for that as well. So again, part of that is having things in multiple languages, being accessible, and not forgetting those voices because they are underserved and traditionally they feel disenfranchised because they haven't, a big word that means they've tried in the past, or even if they didn't try, they haven't been seen or heard, and therefore they don't know if they can be seen or heard because it's not part of their history. And our job is to go find it even if it's not there.
All right, that concludes our questions. Any follow-up questions necessary from the board? Okay. If not, Jared, we appreciate your interview. We're going to transition to the next one. You're welcome to stay around. We will be going into, after the completion of the next one, we'll be going into an executive session for discussion. There likely will not be a determination tonight. So if you want to stick around just to see how the other one is, but we will be in touch. And so that's kind of how we'll go. All right.
I can't make comments from the peanut gallery. Yeah. Just kidding.
I was good. Dave, come up, and I didn't shake your hand as we were coming in, so I want to make people treat them. Sure.
All right. Good to see you. Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight.
Do you want to go around and introduce again? He was here for the other one, but not in that sequence, sir.
Sir.
Valerie Ballard, staff at Morrow County, supporting the consortium.
Matt Jensen, County Administrator and Acting Managing Director.
Lisa Middlestorf, Executive Director, Port of Morrow, Board Member.
Amber Mabbitt, County Planning Director.
Kelly Doherty, Board of
Israel Gonzalez, and I'm on the advisory committee.
Did a little homework. I know Tamara and I see Nick was online there a little while ago. I worked with Matt a few times. Thank you for having me tonight. I also got the email from Matt the other day, and thanks for that. Appreciate that. I had to bug him because I hadn't heard from him in a while. I was wondering if he something been forgot.
I did kind of fall off.
So we'll start out with first of all, I'm a sixth generation Oregonian. I was born and raised in LeGrand. My kids are seventh generation, and my grandchildren are eight. I currently live in Stanfield. My wife and I own a home there. I've been with my career. I was born and raised in LeGrand, grew up there. I went off was at Eastern, but I was in the OSU Ag program, so I ended up graduating from Oregon State. Not yellow and green. But I've spent the first 29 and a half years of my working career, both working in Oregon State parks and also in Oregon agriculture. So I'm very familiar with water, and the background were really one of the reasons I applied for this position. In my 29 years with the Park Service, I started at the bottom of the Park Service. So when I was 18 years old, my old man came to me and said, "I can't help you with schooling. We're not doing well financially. You're on your own. We love you. See ya." And so I jumped on the old seasonal bandwagon and started working for parks and working for farming, to work my way through school. Met my wife in college. And so I started at the bottom of the totem pole, cleaning public restrooms, and worked my way to the top as an executive park manager at the end of my career with the Park Service. And so through that time period, to kind of give just a little bit of a background there, and I'll jump into my city life, is that when I was a frontline park ranger, I did a lot of these projects that we're talking about, putting pipes in the ground, doing as the person doing it, physically. As I got older, I got smarter and decided that maybe behind the desk might be a little bit better to facilitate the things when I saw things that could have been done better from the ground. Or I thought so anyway, until I got to the other side and found out sometimes not better. And so I did a lot of projects when I was in the Park Service. And so water and sewer was a big deal, providing public transient water systems the state parks have. I ran one of the biggest parks in the state. I don't know if you're familiar with the Cove Palisades, Lake Billy Chinook. I ran that for a number of years. Also worked at Smith Rock, worked in Southern Oregon, the Rogue River, worked on the Oregon coast. Then I did a stint as a district manager with the parks. And so I had 5 parks all up and down Central Oregon, up to 50 staff. I oversaw projects that range from $2, $3, $4 million, water, sewer, campsites, restroom buildings, marina resorts. Through my parks career, I was kind of known as a doer. When we had stuff to get done, I was one of the few park managers that would jump in with staff. Not only would I be there to work with engineers and to plan and to get things moving, but also be out there and support where I could when needed. My parks career came to an end in 19. Parks and I kind of parted company for different reasons. And so I kind of moved, I needed to find something to do. So I moved back this way. I was in Central Oregon, Culver. 2 of my kids had graduated, so I had one left. My wife stayed behind. So our youngest graduated. In May of 19, I was hired. I worked for a contracting company for a little while just to kind of get my feelers back up here in this area, did some farming, did a few things, and then jumped on with the city of Echo. So I'm currently the city administrator. I retired in December, but I'm back on as a temporary manager until they find somebody, or till March, just when I told them I was done. So as a city manager in Echo, city administrator, small cities, you wear a lot of hats. I met Tamara through that position, and some of the roles that she's had in the past. And so being a city recorder, being a budget manager, being the project manager, being the grant writer, being the library director, being the city clerk, being the city recorder, being the front of the face to the community and face to our to the county and the state and the feds throughout that process. And so I've done I've carried all those roles as in the city management role. And I got to say that some of the things that I've been very proud of since I've been in Echo are I've heard some questions tonight, so I got to cheat a little bit by listening to the questions, and that's fine. I already had it in my notes, so we were both thinking the same thing. So grant writing and lobbying are two I found in this job are 2 of my stronger points. I didn't realize that coming out of parks because that was a machine, right? And so when you're on your own and working for a volunteer elected board who are small town, very smart people, ranging from ages on my council from 32 years old to 85 years old, and everything in between. That's a lot of life experiences to try to work with and try to understand what direction they want you to go, and we needed infrastructure. So I was very fortunate to work with our legislators during the COVID situation, and we were able to facilitate. The mayor and I spent a lot of time lobbying and also writing grants, but also lobbying at the legislature. We're successful in getting about $8 million just in water and sewer money. Then we've been able to completely redo our sewer and our water for the city. New water, we have a new water reservoir, 14,000 feet of new transmission line, all on the ground, operational right now. New services for every house in town, at no cost to the local taxpayer. It was all grant funds. As you heard, we had the floods in 2020. Some of you probably experienced a lot of that with the Umatilla, living here in the Umatilla Basin. Well, Echo was hit pretty hard. And working with the federal senators, the governor's office, and of course the county commissioners. That made a lot of news when I was working with the commissioners trying to save homes there in town. And we were successful. I was able to get $2 million through OEM to help us facilitate that. As a matter of fact, I paid the county back every penny that they loaned us, and made a deal with them that if you guys are because they use ARPA money to, if you're not familiar with that, that was COVID money that was given out. They, in return, since they used COVID money coming in and essentially it was laundered going back, I told them that they needed to come up with a better plan with that money. So they made me a deal. We made a deal. They used that money for some of that small grants that they write in Umatilla County for those economic development grants and loans and things like that. That's where that money, seed money, came from. We made that deal. So that gave them the opportunity to start that program. And I'm pretty proud that they've kept up with that. And I'm very glad to see that grow with them. Moving forward, you guys asked about experience in planning and coordinating capital improvement projects. Well, that's kind of my forte. Started back in the Park Service as a frontline supervisor. I worked with my managers for my first very large water and sewer project, but neither one of them were real familiar with how to work with contractors, and I'd had some experience with that, so I ended up working with them, getting $2.5 million of the water, sewer, and pavement in the ground, power in the ground. When I became a manager with the Park Service, I went ahead and worked. I had a campground in my management unit that all the sewer had failed. Restrooms were almost completely unoperable. And through the art of politics, I was able to convince the powers that be that it was better for us to get it replaced than sit on it. You have to understand a little bit, there's competition in parks. It used to be in the old days. I don't know how it is now, but in the old days of parks, the parks competed for each other for the same money. So you had to sell yourself to why is the Cove better than Fort Stevens or Beverly Beach. And we're all friends, right? We're all managers. We've been in this game together. And I did something that I didn't have a choice. The DEQ shut me down for our sewer, so I had to put up porta potties in the heat of the summer for a nice site campground. And these are $30 a night campsites. And these folks, 92% of our customers that come there are from Portland. They didn't like that very much. And I knew they wouldn't. And I told the powers that be that it wouldn't go over well. Well, it didn't. So we were able to get $2.5 million in all new restrooms and new sewer and new water the very next year. So I got the opportunity to work with the engineers and design all of that. Being a field operations person, I understand what's practical and what's waste, and what looks good on paper sometimes can be real wasteful on the ground. And I've learned that and used that same thought process in every single project I've done since. So when I started doing the water projects and sewer projects in Echo, we sat down with our engineering firm and they came out with some good plans based off our master planning. However, they weren't practical and they were way over budget, way too more money than we could afford. And so we worked through many hours and many weeks, many months, and then bringing that to the council and explaining it to them. We were able to get all of those things done. We're in phase 3 right now. We phased it out versus doing it all at once because it was cheaper that way versus spending all the money for one general contractor to mark everything up. And so we're in phase 3 right now. We just let it out to a contractor in Tri-Cities. It's going to be finished up phase 3, which is the water treatment cleaning part of our project for Echo. So that's some of that background that I have in that. So not only was I doing it, I was planning it, working with the engineers. I have a real long background. I used to have my water certification, so I understand water a lot. I mean, water is was a big deal. And our well at the cove was 10 feet off the edge of the lake. And so when they first built the cove, they had these rails that they ran to the lake. This is back in the 60s. And they just pumped it out of the lake and served it to the campground and the house and the shop and everything there. And of course, we all know that that's probably not the best idea. And so we moved a well. They have a well there, and then we still had to treat the heck out of it and clean it. We had nitrate issues, not super high, but we did have nitrate issues. So those are some of the things that some of my experiences in capital improvements. Experience in planning and conducting public outreach. Well, in the Park Service, I have to admit, that wasn't my thing. I had staff that did that for me, visitor services, because I was better at getting things done behind the scenes and out there building trails when I was young, and doing those things. But as I got older, I learned that, especially when I spent some time on a school board, I was on a school board for 10 years in Culver. So as a chair, 6 of those 10 years, I had the experience of doing a bond. And so with our staff trying to convince the community, and Culver is a very tight knit community, like many of ours here, a lot of ours in Eastern Oregon. And it took us three failures, and the fourth was a win. I was in front of the news, which is not a comfortable place to be, as some of you have experienced. But sending that positive message about why it was important to do that. And I went to homes, to longtime ranchers and longtime supporters of the Culver community who knew I was the government guy. But they soon realized I wasn't quite as bad as they thought. And we sat down and we talked a lot. And our final push for the final bond to get our grade school updated or replaced, our junior high repaired, and a high school remodeled, won by 5 votes.
Wow.
It was a close call. And we had a lot, and with that, I don't know how many of you have done projects, but you get in public projects right out here in front, you get your curbside superintendents. And we had plenty of those come by to tell our contractors what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong the whole time they built the school. But it was a lot of fun. It wasn't during some of it, people were very passionate, they paid the taxes, they were paying for all that. They didn't understand how school systems work. They didn't understand how funding worked. And so it took a lot of education. So that was probably one of the big turning points for me is I can't palm that off on somebody else. I got to be out there in front of people and doing that. It turned out okay. We did fine. Moving forward to my city position, well, we all know that we got to be in front of the media at some point. Somebody's going to come by and ask you questions. And so getting the positive messages out there with today, after post-COVID, everybody's keyboard warriors. We have a lot of a lot of people out there on the internet, blasting out there with a lot of stuff that is or is not true. So trying to keep the same message and building those trusts where trusts are lost by just pure perception on the internet is a challenge. And I know that here it's a challenge right now. I've been following this pretty closely because we're right on the edge of it. Echo does not have any nitrate issues in the city limits or right around the town, but coming this way, we do have folks that do, as you know. So I've been kind of watching that very closely. So outreach is really important. And here it's going to be even more important. So your manager is going to have to be Matt, the administrator. You guys are elected. You've got your jobs. Tamara's got her job with Planning Commission. You guys have got your hands full. You've got Nick doing grants. But you're going to need somebody that's going to be able to communicate with folks what we're doing every step of the way. If we're going to put a pipe in the ground, people are going to want to know that that's going to do it for them. Is that the right thing to do? Is that the best use of the money? And so having that message up front before we stick it in the ground, and then moving that forward, assuring that we're going to be able to get this done and not try to take it all at once. This is a big thing. There's a lot. Getting water, knowing that as a city manager, taking water outside, if you end up taking water outside of Boardman or Irrigan, and if that ends up being a thing that can be done, there's a lot more to that than what most people understand, because you may move a municipal water outside of a UGB. And so there are things that go with that, who's responsible for it, the cleaning, the making sure things are done. So there's a lot of behind the scenes and state regulations that follow that. And you guys all know that, but the public doesn't. And a lot of times they just don't care. They just want it fixed, and they'll be danged if they need to have it done. Fear seems to run wild on these things, and not having good drinking water or safe drinking water can cause a lot of fear. And so I think it's really important that we continue that, as it's kind of goes hand in hand with getting the pipes in the ground and finding more money, a consistent flow of money. And Jared was right. It's negative for the publicity, but at the same time, that's also your key to use that to give out that message. And honing that message is going to be continuously move forward as you move forward, what that message is. And it's going to be situational, to be honest, on some of these things, I think, depending on where we're at in the area. Interest and understanding of the goals of the Water Consortium is pretty unique. You guys are basically have created this to provide clean, safe water for outlying areas in Morrow County. And that, in a nutshell, is unique. When I've gone and asked for water projects at the legislature and sat there legislator days and sat in legislator's office and sat in Senator Merkley's deal and sat with Senator Wyden and sat with all the different politicians that were behind and instrumental in some of the funding that we got, we didn't talk about so much the safe portion. It was providing water because we were short on water, out of water. We're going to be we were short on fire flow. We're firing this. The safe part didn't really come up. And so having that conversation, I don't know that I've heard that a lot until this situation has become out in front of the media about providing safe. We all think about it. It should be safe coming out of the tap, but that's not necessarily true. And so, I think it's a unique situation for you guys. And if I were to be hired for this, to continue the funding piece of this, because the funding piece of this is you get one lump of change, that's not going to fix it. You're going to need a consistent moving forward. And I've talked with Nick. I've worked with Nick on other projects. I've done a lot of grant writing and lobbying myself personally. Money is getting a little bit harder to find, and in this special federal money. And so, standing out and utilizing the opportunities, whatever they end up being, is what's going to be absolutely crucial to sell them that this is very important. It's not just an isolated house here, an isolated thing here. It's a regional thing, and that they need to understand that. And they may see it in the news, but they may not understand it. And so, putting this together where you guys have got some money together, and I commend you for that. And moving it forward and getting it basically the military troop boots on the ground, getting the pipes in the ground, moving to that next phase is going to be critical for this, for the consortium and moving forward with the nitrate management.
Thank you, Dan. Chair, if you'd like to start with the
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Any questions? And there again, in your P4, the presentation, you covered kind of my first question, but I'll do it again anyway. I assume you read the IGA mission statement.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have the mission statement sitting right in front of me.
Yeah. No, I just want to make sure.
Yes, sir. No, I've read it multiple times. And the reason is because, like I said, it's unique. I mean, I helped write mission statements in the parks and in the city. My council didn't even know what a mission or vision statement was. And we went through that whole training process. So.
And is there anything else you want to, or I want to ask you guys both the same question.
Yes.
Could you summarize real quickly what our goals are? What is the goals of the consortium?
Well, in a nutshell, it's to provide safe, clean drinking water to the outlying areas that are affected by the nitrates in the Morrow County unincorporated areas, in a nutshell.
Great. Okay. Question number 2, and these are all kind of connected. Do you feel you could stay on track with our mission statement and not get tempted to sway away based on discussions coming out of Salem, the larger nitrate issue long term?
That's not what you were hiring me to do. If it was me, you're not hiring me to do that. You're hiring me to do this, and you're hiring me to stay on that. So no, I getting off track and going off direction is not one of my strong points. Staying on focus, staying on point is very important. And in this political climate, it is very easy for folks to get distracted and pulled away. Well, what if we do this and we put off? Staying focused is going to be very important. So no, I would want to stay on point so we get done. Now, Commissioner, if we get to the point where we've reached some of those goals, or we've reached a large percentage of those goals, and some of these other things that have been brought up, can fit into that because it's gonna continue to take our mission further in the same direction, I would propose that to you. But if they don't, and they go this way, you're not gonna hear it out of my mouth.
Okay. My third question, tell us your work and personal attributes that would keep you on track with your mission statement, and I'll kind of preface the same thing I told him is, this is a self-motivated job, and it sounds to me like as a city manager, and some of the other stuff you talked about with your parks job and stuff. Tell us what are your personal attributes that will keep you from having to be supervised on a day-to-day basis by the board?
Well, you wanna be honest,
Because you can.
I'm gonna be straight with you. I don't like micromanagement. I was micromanaged before in previous careers and previous places. I don't want that. And so I don't want you to have to feel like you're looking over my shoulder, and I sure as the heck don't want you looking over my shoulder. I want you to trust me. So the only way I could do that is to get my job done and keep working. I'm a very driven person. I married a bookkeeper. My wife is black and white. She keeps a spreadsheet for what I buy at the store. I mean, so she has her own company, plus she works right down the road here as your finance director for the Parks and Rec department. So that, to answer your question flat out, I would not want anybody looking over my shoulders. I'm going to probably be, if I were hired for this, I'm probably going to drive you nuts because I'm going to be coming at you with a lot of things, questions, and bugging Matt a lot. Because I want to get things done. I'm a doer. I don't like idle sitting around. So I think if you have anything to worry about is that I get everything done and then I'm coming back asking for more. And that would maybe not be a bad thing.
Good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, my turn. Give an example of when you've had to manage an intense interaction with a member or group from the public on a divisive subject. What worked? What could you have done better?
Boy, which career?
Recently.
Well, recently you can go to Facebook and find that out.
I don't.
But it's so what works good, what works so the last year and a half in Echo has been a little bit of a wild ride. And it really boiled down to some folks misunderstanding well, what Tammy does, we're doing a comprehensive and development code update. I mean, part of that, we got a grant from DLCD and did that, and got a counselor and some constituents that got themselves in a frenzy over it. And unfortunately it went sideways a little bit. But it went what worked well is we went from 80 people showing up to council meetings to 5. So found out that we weren't blowing smoke and we were telling the truth the whole time. And that the rhetoric about you can't build anything in Echo and you're gonna have to have the same color house, it's the same color as your neighbors, and you gotta do, all these stories. I could not believe some of the things that were coming out of people's mouths that were nowhere in the plan, which is online to read. So I think that one there, it's probably an extreme because it got some counsel. It's ended up getting some folks in trouble with ethics commission, and not me, but it's kind of read down that road. And what's worked with the public to calm down almost everybody except the core group that can't be moved. You all know that you always have a group of folks in the community or out in the public that are always going to be that group that's always no, doesn't matter what you say. But just sitting down and having those conversations on relationship building or rebuilding in some cases in this situation was imperative to do. And even though I'm leaving the role, and some of it was because of a few things that a few folks had done, most of it's because I did 36 years of that and I kind of wanted to make a change. And so, and here I am interviewing for a public job in a way, but it's a private as well. I'm working for myself for you if I were to be hired. So the things that I learned is I should have done a better job of putting things out earlier on the internet, even though they would have never read it, but I put it out there anyway. I should have done that earlier than I did. And maybe some of the craziness that we lived through could have been avoided, but I think because of some agenda items that came up from folks or have come out of this, I think that some of it was inevitable. But people were passionate and worried. And I think that we over some things that didn't make a lot of sense, but we worked through it and got through that process.
Thank you. This one should be easy. Please describe your experience in managing public meeting requirements in Oregon.
Oh, Robert's rules, one of my favorite. So as a city recorder, as one of my duties, I do all the agendas, do all the council minutes, do all of the planning, do all of the resolutions, ordinances, anything and everything that has to do with that job, and then also the management position I do on a daily basis. So for the last, since 2019, I've been doing all the minutes for the city, doing all of the anything and everything that you can read online, I wrote at one point or another. So lots and lots of experience with that. And then trying to educate folks. The great thing about being a city manager, you got League of Oregon Cities, you've got other managers that you can lean on and ask questions when you run into something you haven't run into before. So yeah, lots of experience in that.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, my turn. Grants, local, state, federal, and private will be a large component of the CWC budget.
Mhm.
You've already touched on this, but if there's something you haven't touched on, this is another opportunity to describe your experience working with grants and also ensuring grant compliance.
Yes, well, being that I got around 12 point, I was did an oral interview here recently for a historian there in Echo, and I was running through my brain of the grants because I didn't, I've got them all everywhere, but so about $12.7 million in grants that I've been able to get in Echo, and that's federal, state, tribal, you name it. They all come with their own set of rules. And so, and I haven't gotten in trouble for not complying with any of them. So I would say that each one of them comes with a set of rules. Now, have I brought in subject matter experts like Nick a few times to pick his brain? Or have I brought in Anderson and Perry to do some legwork? Absolutely. I mean, you can't do everything yourself, but writing them, lobbying for them is very important. And then figuring out if you can get something changed out of a grant. Some of the EPA grant stuff that we did, we got an EPA grant, and they wanted us to do all these extra things. They wanted us to do a NEPA to put water meters in the ground. And I said, no, we're not doing a NEPA to put water meters in the ground. So where do I get a waiver for one of those? And so we did a waiver and didn't have to do a NEPA to put water meters back in the same hole we took the old ones out of. And so going through this process. So compliance, yeah. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want my name on the front page of the newspaper because I did something bad. So what was the other part of that question? I'm sorry.
I think you answered it.
Okay.
It was about securing grants and ensuring compliance.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. So how would you handle a situation where all the board members may not have a consensus?
I've just been experiencing that. Basically, communication is key. You're not going to win. I've learned through this last experience. You're not going to win everybody's heart and mind and soul when they get set on something. But realizing and learning where they're coming from. And if it's an honest, genuine place, then I find it's easier for me to work through that process. Having them come to my office, I go to their house. I've made a point of in every one of my council members' house more than once to have conversations with them on any number of things over the years. When I was on the school board, I was a school chair for 6 of those 10 years. When we had our board, we were all of us always got agreed on everything. But one of the things that I did as the chair was I would have those. I learned this technique that I use now there by having those conversations and finding out why'd you get on the school board in the first place if you were going to do this. So let's find some middle ground and work on it. I might not necessarily said it quite like that. I'm not gingery with my words sometimes. But I will tell you that I get it done. And those are some of the questions that they did. So building those relationships is really important. If they can trust me to do that, when I say that we're going to have a $500,000 grant, that's a $500,000 grant, it's not a loan, then I think we're getting something. And so moving baby steps with some folks, it's really important. And again, you come from different walks of life. But if you can agree, we have a mission. The consortium has a mission. If we can agree that that's what we're here to do, then let's find a way to work through that process. If we disagree on something, let's figure it out. Let's not get mad and take it personal because this is bigger than us.
So if you came over to my house and invited for the Civil War game, would you come?
Yeah, I would.
Everything would be okay.
Everything would be okay. What kind of whiskey do you provide?
Depends on who's winning.
Oh, okay, fair,
The
that's
Beavers
fair
are
enough.
ahead a lot.
Well, my brother-in-law was not only he went to Oregon State, he was also a cheerleader there and then went into the Air Force for 36 years. So when there's Beavers on, he goes crazy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
What is your experience working with state and federal representatives, both elected and staff?
Well, getting to know chiefs of staffs is awesome, but I always did it backwards. I went and met the representatives or the senators first, and then got to know the chief of staff. So I've worked with Wyden and Merkley a lot. Kathy's retired. They've got the new aide out here. Jessica Keys and I worked together a ton. Senator Merkley got us the money for the through direct appropriations for the water meters. So I worked with their office a ton. Representative Levy, Bobby and I are good friends, and we have worked together a lot. We've been through a lot of battles together, not against each other, but together in the room with common causes. Greg and I have talked a lot. I've worked with Greg a ton. Senator Knapp's getting to know him better every day. He's a great guy. Worked with Senator Hessel up until he retired. These are just our local folks. One of the things that in this job, we're bipartisan. We're not gonna be we're not, Republican or Democrat. When I go down to the Capitol, I'm in everybody's office that'll take and talk with me and work with any of them on anything when I'm down there for the reasons I'm down there for. So working with that is very key, and keeping those relationships open. When if they're in the area, have a coffee. I mean, just doing the right thing and being human. There's some of the things that I've learned that these folks seem to cherish because they want to do the right thing. I work for the governor's office a ton. Governor Brown, now Governor Kotek. I've worked with them both, all their staff and them as well. So I've had a lot of opportunity to do those things in this role, and I'm grateful that I've learned a lot.
Next question. Many residents served by the Clean Water Consortium are underrepresented minority groups. How have you successfully handled interacting in such situations?
Well, Echo is a small town. Echo and Stanfield are both small, and they're both Echo specifically is an underserved population of both elderly and Hispanic population. I don't speak Spanish. I have a staff member that does. When we have something that comes up, what I have learned is that listening and working with folks especially since we have such a high population of elderly that are on fixed income, and they get a lot of their news from the post office or Facebook, and they get freaked out and they want to talk to you about it. I am always have made a point of stopping whatever I'm doing and meeting with them. I'm going to their homes when they ask, and having those conversations, making sure that they're heard and that they're not being forgotten. And or sometimes folks feel like, well, you didn't ask us, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or such and such said this and such said that. That's more common in our public roles. Having those conversations and making sure they understand where you're coming from, and that everybody's equally important. There's no more important person in the community than everybody in it. And so that, especially post-COVID, with a lot of things, a lot of society's been torn apart at the roots across the country. No matter your political ideology, it's a rough place right now. And so I think having those conversations, especially with what can be labeled and or as interpreted as underserved or minority populations, is key. Especially with all the news right now, with everything going on with the immigration. I think folks, especially of Hispanic descent, have some fears that maybe are not necessarily need to be, and that not everybody is coming to scare them and run them off. And so having those conversations and making sure they understand who you are and what your role is important. And then when they understand that, a lot of that fear goes away. All of it, no, because you have to build that trust. But it takes time. A lot of experience in a small town. And in the park service, I lived in small rural communities. out in the middle of nowhere. But an opportunity just by living that life.
I think that's the last question.
That's the finish for our, questions. Appreciate you, your presentation, Dave.
Thank you.
Any other final comments from the board? So, our plan is to, as I mentioned, is to go into an executive session. We do not have an action for tonight, so this is something that I'll be back in touch with both of you, and giving direction on next steps. Probably not tonight, I'll let you have the weekend. But we'll be in touch with you, on Monday at the latest, just to let you know what, next steps on the direction we're going.
Sure.
And so, appreciate your time and your presentations.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This is the weekend, by the way, Matt. It's after 5 on Friday night.
Yeah. My son's a contractor. First thing he goes, what are you doing an interview at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday, Dad? So-
Are you sure that's what you're doing?
My wife said the same thing. Like, I thought this is a public entity. Like, what are you doing on Friday?
We're determined.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, my cow's about to be there
Nice to
tomorrow.
meet you. Thank you very much.
Are you related to the Doherty clan out in Pilot Rock?
Yeah, true.
You are? Do you know the
Thank
other
you guys.
Kelly
Thank
Doherty?
you.
So
Hey,
there's
hey, I'm
actually
gonna talk to you for a second.
4 of us.
Thank you guys.
There's 4 Kelly
There's
Dohertys.
Well,
Yeah.
And we're all related.
oh, do you know, cause Kelly Doherty was my secretary at Sunridge Middle School.
Oh.
And so when I heard your name, I had like double took like 3 times, like, did you say Kelly Doherty?
Will the real Kelly Doherty please stand up?
Right?
Anyway, she was like my mom, like I loved her to death. So I just the name and I'm like, that can't be the, and then finally I was like, oh, okay, that's not that Kelly Doherty. We're good. So anyway, sorry,
No problem.
leaving now.
Okay. Now we're gonna go back into executive session under ORS 192-6602D, which allows the board to meet in executive session to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent.
Good to go.
Okay, we're back in open session. How many people were waiting?
Just Kristen Ostrom, one.
Okay. Well, we did announce that there wasn't. Anyway, okay. Does anyone have a motion they would like to make?
I would like to propose that we come back for a second follow-up meeting with an interview with both candidates. More questions.
Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Same sign, motion carried. Okay, there we go.
Who's gonna write the questions though?
We all are. I think we all
Is
have
that-
different questions again.
Okay. Should we each write our own, and as long as we ask each candidate the same?
Everybody write one?
I mean,
If they're the same, maybe we
is it,
write 2, so we don't have the same questions basically, or the same categories.
yeah, we should probably have a pre-meeting like we did before, but is it
Or if you-
improper?
If you'd like to submit the questions to me, I could compile it
Then
and
just,
say the same theme
Yeah,
was asked for 4 times.
Yeah.
And then I can shoot that out as a precursor as part of the executive session packet. And so we can do that. Just so
And
we aren't spending an hour like we did
Yeah.
this
Or
time.
even just having the list like you did with, if, if you have 4 questions, send
Mhm.
them, and then you can look at everybody's questions together and then decide together, hey, these are our 12 questions that we have, let's now kind of narrow it down and see what is really important.
Mhm.
If you'd like to shoot those questions to me by next Friday, we can get those compiled. Now.
You submitted some, right? Good.
Yeah.
I hope so.
And is
Aaron, you're
it,
gonna submit some, right? Or not? You don't have to, I'm not trying to pressure you.
is it improper to ask, to talk about the compensation in the second interview?
I'll be asking for additional information
In advance of the interview?
in advance.
Yeah.
In advance, okay,
Okay.
that's great, okay, that would be helpful.
Okay, so that's, is that done, and we already made the motion, okay, and our last item is next to last item 5, Other business review of Morrow and Umatilla County's letter to ODA regarding rules governing agricultural activities in LeBlanc.
I'm gonna do that another time, Dave.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay. All right, then the last item is public comment. We don't really have anybody. Is there anybody on Zoom that wants to make a public comment? If there is, tell you what the rules are. If not, we won't. Raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anybody, do you guys?
No.
No. Okay, anything else to come with group? And then we'll call the meeting adjourned.
I know scheduling this one was on